401k advisors want to build a scalable practice, but aren't always sure what to do next. Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Here's your host, Ross Marino, financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X.
Welcome to the Outcomes podcast. I am joined today by Brad Arends, CEO of Intellicents. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Russ. Happy to be here.
It's an exciting day. It's Friday morning. It's summertime. We are in the middle of the pandemic, and we're trying to all figure out how to shelter and what to do and so forth. And we're working in the home office many different times, and a lot of people are just listening to this on a podcast. I have the benefit of seeing you on video, and your t-shirt is absolutely awesome. You are ready for work. Can you tell us what you're wearing?
Oh, this is the new business casual here at Intellicents. This is actually my favorite t-shirt because growing up a Fleetwood Mac fan, nothing beat Stevie Nicks at the time. So this is a business casual for a 61-year-old CEO whose idea of business formal is just to throw a jean jacket on over this right now. It's the new
I love it. Well, we don't have to be formal today. Jean jacket not required, and I think it's 85 degrees in Minnesota right now for you. So we'll let you go with the t-shirt, and you got a great picture of Stevie Nicks on it, and it just simply says "Rock On." So I love it. So thank you. With this session, we're going to talk about the convergence of personal financial planning and employer-sponsored plans. And you have a unique perspective as the CEO of Intellicents. You see both sides, you're engaged in both sides. And as we're going to talk about some of the challenges and where this industry is going and how advisors really need to think through these situations, I want to make sure for the people that don't know you or may not know your history, you've obviously spoken a lot. You're out on the conference circuit when there actually was a conference and a circuit. And we've heard you a lot of times. But for people who don't, can you maybe just give us an overview of what kind of services Intellicents provides and what your role is? Because I just want to make sure everybody understands that you really do have a unique perspective on this when you're looking at both sides of personal financial planning and employer-sponsored plans.
Yes. Well, Intellicents started as basically an advisory firm for qualified retirement plans. And this is back shortly after the passage of ERISA. It wasn't long after that 401k started to emerge, and we were an early adopter of that. And at that time, while we were doing 401k conversions of a lot of our defined benefit, money purchase pension, and profit sharing programs, we put in flex plans at the same time. And that pushed us into the group insurance arena. And so Intellicents, for literally decades, has had a heavy emphasis on retirement consulting services, fiduciary consulting services, but then also has a separate division that does group insurance. Now, we believe that that there is a convergence of health, wealth, and now personal financial management, or wealth management, as the industry calls it, just because of what's happening in benefits today. And that's how we've basically structured our firm. We're in those four businesses today: retirement, group insurance, private wealth, and kind of the mortar or the glue that holds them all together is worksite financial wellness.
Okay, so if I wrap my head around all that, and this is why I was really excited to have you on the podcast and talk with you about this, is you're not someone who does employer-sponsored plans and then said, hey, we really need to add financial planning. Or you're not the financial planner that said, a lot of my clients have businesses, I need to add 401ks. That's how a lot of us enter this business. We may come from one side or the other, but you really did get the top-down view, and you have the benefits, and you have a background in all of them. So you've seen a lot more. So as this convergence comes together, you understand the needs in each of those different lines of business, and you can see how they're all going to be delivered through the employer-sponsored plan marketplace. And you didn't always do this. So when we first spoke, you told me a story with a client, and we all tend to have that one story as an advisor where it kind of changed everything. And sometimes we knew it at the time. Other times it just took a while to percolate, and we eventually realized, you know what? Things are changing here. I've got to shift the gears. But you actually had an experience with a client that you served well. They loved you. They've been a client for a long time, but then you had that meeting and it really shifted things and kind of changed how you had to look at the business. Would you mind sharing that story?
Sure. Actually, this wasn't just a client, it was our best client. And by best client, it was not only our biggest client, but a reference list client that we were not considered a vendor with, or even a consultant. We were considered a partner with them, which I think is the highest form of customer relationship that you can achieve. And we put their 401k plan in when they were smaller. We just had less than 10 employees back in the mid 80s. It was one of my first big 401k plans that we put in. We thought it was big at the time. I think it had $11 million in a profit sharing plan, and today it's over 320 million in total assets. So we had been around a long time at this client. About 4 years ago, I was at an investment committee meeting that we do quarterly. And the CFO of the organization, who has been around as long as we've been there, started the meeting out by saying, Brad, you guys have done a great job of getting our employees to retirement. And I am beaming from ear to ear.
Yeah, let me jump in quick. Let me jump in quickly. So this has now been a client for years and years, and you know you've done a good job because you've laid out your business plan. You know what your services are. You've worked with this client. You've executed on it. You've helped them grow. And yes, you're at that level where you say we are partners. And that's what we're all trying to do. Nobody wants to be viewed as a vendor or a product provider. We want to work with you. We love knowing that we are in this with you and we are helping you. And that's this client. So they're starting to tell you how you've done a great job. But I think in my mind, you know you've done a great job because you know what you're supposed to do. You are doing your job. You are providing the needs that they have. And here you are in this meeting, right? And now you're beaming. And I remember thinking through that as you were talking, that of course, it's like, yes, we are executing. This is awesome. And now I'm getting the affirmation that, yes, I am doing what we were supposed to be doing. And more importantly, the client actually gets it. They know that we're doing our job. I mean, that is awesome. What an awesome meeting. So go on. What happens next?
Well, after he gives me that adoration, he says, but then you abandon our employees. And it opens the floodgates to every broker around town who comes in. And in one transaction, that rollover transaction, they basically destroy 30 years of great service by us by taking that rollover and putting it into an index annuity that pays that broker, 7% and has 350 basis points of internal wrap expense.
Okay, so here we are where you know what your job is, and it's to help them get to retirement. And of course, eventually through retirement. And here's your client, your best client, your favorite client, your partner. And he just used the word, and this was a specific word. I mean, I felt it in my stomach when you said that word. He said that you abandoned them. How does that make you feel? How did it make you feel back then when here's your best client who is about to tell you how much he loves you and you know it, says you abandoned them, Brad?
Well, it turned a smile into at best a neutral expression, and but it pointed out that there was a need here that we were not addressing. We had done a great job of practicing outcomes there. We had gone from just providing the 3 F's of fiduciary, funds, and fees, and we had monitored outcomes, and we had improved outcomes in that plan. It started out when we first measured it, 19% of their employees were on track to maintain their same standard of living at retirement, and it was up close to 60%. By the time this comment came out, but so we'd done that. But then it pointed out that that another 30 years that employee had to work with somebody in order to take care of not the accumulation phase. That's what we were doing. But we were not doing the decumulation phase, which when you really look at it, there's more risk there for that person than the accumulation phase.
So if you're going through that shift, you're now sitting there in this meeting. And at this time, if I understand you and clarify if I'm missing it, you know this is a need, of course, because you're in this business. But as a company, are you actually prepared at that moment to deal with it? Do you know what you're going to do? Or are you still kind of in shock of, you're right, I've got to do something? Walk me through your mindset.
Well, in the beginning, we thought we need to do more group meetings, educational group meetings, which we did a ton of those. And instead of just talking to people about how to accumulate a mountain of money, we needed to start talking to them about the journey down the mountain, the decumulation phase. And so we built a retirement income planning group meeting that we gave to people. We invited every participant to come who was age 50 and above. And they went over well, good participation. But we still were having issues with brokers attacking the plan at age 59 and a half. And HR would keep track of where the money was going, on rollovers. And it just wasn't, there were still major issues there. So we put together basically a checklist that we gave out to employees that said, when you go out to that broker, here, we want you to fill this out, and we're not going to put our rollover with you unless you do. And in that, he had to disclose all the contingent deferred sales charges, all the loads, everything. And that didn't work. And it just got to the point where we felt we couldn't solve it unless we formally got in that business.
Okay, so here's the question. You gave them information, and we've certainly learned over the years that providing information is part of our job, but it's never enough. Otherwise, professionals wouldn't be needed in many situations because someone could just go get the information. And digging deeper, it's really the rational side of the brain fighting with the emotional side of the brain. And we tend to buy things driven by emotions, and it's pretty simple when you're 59 and a half to think, I might run out of money. And those emotions can be played on. So, we certainly get that. But you've put it together, you've educated them, they have this sheet, all they have to do is have this information filled out. You would think it would be fairly clear to them whether this was a reasonable thing to do or not a reasonable thing to do, but it didn't work. Why do you think that is?
I think that the average person pays close attention to issues at hand. And that's when they like to learn about things, but then, they don't put it in deep memory until it's something that is affecting them today. And so it was really good that we were starting that communication. But at the end of the day, if we weren't around giving them that education at the point that they were ready to take money out of the plan, chances are it was lost. And what we found is if we were really going to move the dial, we had to get into personal wealth, because we really didn't do it. We had a little personal wealth, but we didn't actively go after it. And quite frankly, we were putting out C papers at the time in personal wealth. It showed us that we had to get in there. And we had to develop a service that complemented our 401k service and actually focused on retirement income planning and financial planning.
So you use the words had to do it. So you're not approaching this, and I can hear it in your voice, and I know who you are. So I understand that you're doing what needs to be done. You're not saying this is a business opportunity. There's potential for us to keep these clients and generate revenue and build a practice. And I've spoken to you enough that, yes, you have to build a business model, but you keep saying this needs to be done. I had to do this. So once that takes a hold of you and you realize I have to do it, walk me through maybe some of the business models you thought of in your mind of, okay, if I have to do this and I'm not putting out the level of service and engagement that I want, what did you consider before you started moving forward, or what did you try as you were building up this post-working retirement income and financial planning wealth management practice?
Well, at first we tried to put together a service, a wealth management service that our 401k advisors could use. And we did that, but we really didn't. We knew all about investing. It wasn't a knowledge base, from an investment standpoint, that we lacked. It was just the systems, period. And and plus it was also a time issue. If you're a really good 401k advisor, you don't have the time to be a really good private wealth advisor. You just plain don't have the time to do it. Because to do something really, really well, you have to give up some other things. That's always been a motto of mine. And so we came to the conclusion, number one, that we needed to do it because we're a very participant-centric firm. I know the employer hires us, but we consider our employees actually their participants. With one-on-one advice, we've been doing that forever, but only through the accumulation phase. We knew we needed to build this, and we needed certified financial planners who knew how to put the service together and just focused on that. They weren't focused on delivering 401k fiduciary services. They were focused on getting that participant through retirement. And so we went out and started hiring seasoned, experienced financial planners to join our team.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is that it's hard to do both sides of the business. Talking with an investment committee is different than talking with an investor. Those are different conversations. They're approached differently. The information's already available and there's product knowledge out there and people can do that. But this isn't about product. This is about planning, about understanding what you want out of life. You need someone that does that. That's what they do on a regular basis. So I think we talked about this before. Being a 401k specialist is important. And in the future, that importance is not going to be diminished. However, the clients aren't going to want just that. As we move towards outcomes, you still have to be a 401k specialist. You still have to be skilled in that. So if I hear you correctly, Brad, what you're saying is if you're a 401k specialist, that's great. If you really want to deliver financial planning, you have to find other people, financial planners, and figure out how to bring them into your practice and create a delivery service model.
You will never succeed in taking them all the way through retirement if you don't do that piece. You have to add new teammates to your team. And they have to have a skill set that is very investment heavy, but totally based on financial planning. Totally based on financial planning and how they think and what the systems are that you need to put in place for them to be able to deliver those services, not just to the C-suite, but down to the 99%. The personal wealth industry wants to deliver financial planning services to the C-suite, basically. The upper 1% of Americans as determined by income, basically. And they openly acknowledge that there is a market there for what they refer to as the 99%, or more commonly, they call them the underserved. Those are our 401k participants that the private wealth industry has largely been ignoring. And they acknowledge it. They do. But we believe here at Intellicents that the 99% need financial planning as badly as the 1%. Maybe on different areas they need to focus, like just general budgeting, maximum debt load, emergency funds, things like that. I mean, they desperately need that today, as has been exposed by the corona crash right now, when you see millions of Americans losing their jobs.
Well, and I think that it highlights the challenge that we have on both sides of the industry. And by both sides, I mean employer-sponsored plans and personal financial planning. There's a lot of small plans out there with 5 or 10 participants that really could use the services of a specialist, but they're just not profitable. And sometimes you take them on because they may have come from a center of influence, but everybody has their sweet spot out there. And there's there's account minimums, there's employer sponsored plan minimums. And then on the personal financial side, there's annual fee minimums, there's account minimums. So we're all struggling with the same issue of how do we deal with the economics behind the 99%? And in order to do that, we have to think differently. I know that many CFPs, and I'm one that'll say it as well, we are overkill for most people in most situations. We can't deliver the level of value for the amount of money that we would say our practice charges this. It's not that there isn't value, but it's just not a good fit. We see it on the 401k side. We see it on the personal wealth side. So in the financial planning world, it's challenging. If the higher end CFPs, the good financial planners can't work with the smaller clients, they tend to be subject to advisors, and I really use that word loosely, advisors that have different agendas. The 401k world, I think, is coming really along with the 338s and 316s, and we're finding ways to really help out smaller plans. And that kind of moves us towards the 99% where we can help them. So now let's take it back to, we're in a 401k. It's profitable. It's a good plan for a 401k specialist. But here's the 99% of the employees that one-on-one just don't represent a profitable relationship with a CFP. They don't need a full-blown financial plan. You came up with a solution for that, and you're rolling that out. Would you mind sharing how you guys have taken just a simple analysis with, if I remember correctly, 2 data points, and those 2 data points actually launch a financial planning conversation? So can you share that with everybody who's listening?
Sure. This all came about. I wish I could say that I came up with the idea myself, but actually, I was with a CEO of a major fintech company that is very well known within the financial planning industry. Let's put it that way. And we were having a conversation at dinner, and we were talking about robo advisors, which there's a lot of robo advisors. I mean, we have one ourselves to help with the issues of just money management. But he made the statement that they were thinking about the ability to do a robo financial plan. And, I didn't ask him anymore, but it stuck with me. It just did. And then we got hired by a couple companies to actually do financial planning for all their employees. I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? What's our deliverable to everybody? And I came back to that comment. What can I deliver with just a simple couple of data points? And I call it our foundational financial plan. It's basically a robo that with just name, age, and wage, I can deliver data points, advice actually, as to what their budget should be like, how much debt load they should have, how much of an emergency fund they should have, how much life insurance should they have, and where should they be at this age in terms of what their account balance is in their 401k, if they're on track to have enough money, with 2 data points from payroll, basically. And I can create it. We call it our Life Steps program. So when a company hires us to do financial planning for every employee, the first thing we do is get that data and create that 3-page document that we hand out to every employee.
Yeah, and it's a great way to start. Now, I'll tell you that 20 years ago, if you told me that, I would say that is so basic, and I realize you're just trying to start the conversation. I get that. I was a CFP snob, right? I put the bar high. This is financial planning, Brad. I need to understand your tax situation, your estate planning, your family situation. I need to look at your investments. Can I see your debt? We're going to have to look at your budget. I have to know those things before I could possibly give any advice, because after all, anything short of that is downright unethical. And I'm sure I can take the code of ethics from the CFP board and find some substance behind that and say, you can't do this. But I know what you're doing. And in this day and age, we've learned that this is where you meet people where they're at. You have to start the conversation. You're not telling them this is the answer to all of your problems. And that's a balance where you want them to be able to see the numbers and think about it, but not necessarily think this is advice where I have to have this amount of insurance or I have to save this much for retirement, because they're variables. So how do you help people understand that we are starting the conversation here? We want to engage you, and you need to go further to really find out what's right for you. How do you walk people through that?
Well, the goal of that is actually for that person to look at it and say, this is wrong. It doesn't take into account my private assets. It doesn't take into account my wife's 401k plan. It doesn't take into account my spouse's wage. We make more as a family, so these numbers are wrong. And it's there to prompt them to take the next step, because most people in the 99%, they don't think that they have any wealth. So to talk to a certified financial planner, one of ours today we have 5 of them, they think that's for my boss who has a lot of wealth and who has estate planning issues. The typical American gets the vast majority of their financial needs taken care of at their place of employment. And when you look at the complexity of these employee benefit plans today, they alone are financial planning issues. They're not just benefit issues anymore. They don't know which of the 4 health plans to choose. They don't know if they need dental insurance, or they don't know if they should use their HSA or their flex. These are all financial planning issues. And what we need to do is recognize that, and then we need to put the program together to push them towards past that robo financial plan into a holistic financial plan that takes into account where they're at today. That's the goal.
So you're literally sparking the conversation by using general information or rules of thumb that we know aren't accurate. And I love that, because I'm listening to a book right now, and it's a superpower book, and it's actually quite boring, so I didn't make it through it. But they had this character in there called Professor Well Actually. He was the smartest person in the universe, but he wouldn't tell you what he knows unless you said something wrong. And he would say, well, actually, and then he would give you the answer. And it was a really funny character of the way you would spark this person to actually tell you what's going on. And you've just basically created a report that is by Professor Well Actually, where you show the people, here's how much you need to save for retirement. And they say, well, actually, I have other things. And now they're going to engage and want to find out what really happens. Is that what's going on?
Exactly. And we created this. We call it this Life Steps program just a couple years ago, and we had actually had a 400 life heavy manufacturer hire us to give financial planning service to every employee 2 years before that. And you know what? Out of 400, we had less than 10% of the people really engage us to do a full financial plan for them. And we weren't satisfied with that, and the employer wasn't satisfied with that. What we found is if we first put this document out, this robo financial plan, it sparks an interest. And it gets them to say, you know what, I know now I have a problem, but I need to engage the certified financial planners at intellicents to give me a holistic, comprehensive financial plan that really does address all these big issues.
So you're helping move that number from 10%, whatever the adoption rate is, higher. And I did a presentation in Denver last year about how to view this exact number, because I had listened to advisors say, well, if only 10% of the people adopted the particular service, it was a failure. And I said, wrong. This is financial planning. People address a need when they sense the need, and 100% are not going to do that. Now, 10% wasn't enough, and you figured out a way to do a little better, and that's great. But we still have the bar pretty high up here with a full financial plan, and we know that's great for a lot of people. What are you doing for people who really can only meet you in one place or take one step at a time where all I can do is think about an emergency fund, or I just want to pay down my debts. I really can't think about a full financial plan because 20 years from now is the least of my concerns. I'm not sure what's going to happen 20 days from now. How are you working with those people from a financial planning perspective?
Well, all of this is kind of part of the intelligence overall worksite financial wellness program. And prior to us diving into this, we basically had a group meeting that we gave, which was 100% focused on retirement and the accumulation phase. Today, we have 15 different group meetings that we've put together. And when an employee, and we can do it either digitally, just through video, or we can come on site to deliver this, or we could do a Zoom for our clients. And those group meetings can be as long as 45 minutes to an hour, or they can be shortened to 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon how thorough we want to be on budgeting, for example. Do we want to just look at budgeting, or do we also want to talk about debt management, emergency funds, all of that together? We've developed that library of group meetings that our advisors and consultants can go out and give and be part of this. And what we found is that prompts people of different ages and different stages in their life to say, okay, let's take this in steps. I think what's going to come here, Ross, is all of this is going to move to an app. I really do. I think that is, I know it is, because I've been asked by, once again, it's the same major fintech company to say, I want to know, what you think about this, and how would you deliver this in the form of an app? And I think that that's going to come within the next 12 months. I really do.
Yeah, and I think if you look at our industry from arm's length, and one mental model that people do is they'll say, if an outside consultant looked at our industry, what kind of observation would they make? And I think you nailed it with the app. They would say that whatever you do is going to be either integrated with or fully delivered through an app, because we have voted as a society and we want to use the app. And maybe 6 months ago, there would have been some resistance for people that, like you and I, may wear a rock-on t-shirt and love it. However, our generation, we have now been forced, and people even much older than us have been forced to do business online. Now they're Zooming. Now it's not just FaceTime, it's Zoom. They're buying things online. There's Amazon Prime. There's Walmart Plus that's going to be coming out. This movement to do everything online, which really involves an app as well, it's going to hit every single industry out there. That's what the outside consultants would say, is that it's going to hit our industry. So do you think this is going to be like a waterfall effect where it just rushes and within a few years everybody's got an app? Or do you think we have to wait for the proof is in the pudding, and some companies are going to be a little slower on trying to roll this out? How do you think this is going to play out?
I think it's the next generation of worksite financial wellness. Today, the typical employer checks the box and says, I've got a worksite financial wellness program. It's attached to my record keeper, my 401k record keeper. It's this beautiful website that less than 5% of the people actually go out and less than 5% even go out and look at it. And probably less than 2% actually engage it. And the key is we've got to engage these people. And I think the people want advice. We can't expect people to be successful with tomorrow's money, their retirement account, if today's money is a mess. We have got to educate them on that, because they didn't learn it in school and they didn't learn it from their parents for the most part. We've got to educate them. Just view an app that takes that robo financial plan that I'm currently putting out in paper form, and I give it to all my participants, and it's just there. And they immediately see that on that app. And then there's a library there of videos and written things that, it's identified issues that they may have, and it automatically emails them information, education on here's how here's what you need to do for an emergency fund. Here's how to look at the proper debt management. Here's what you need to be thinking in terms of sending your kids to college and the type of vehicle that's attached to it. It may even have a robo-advisor attached to it. That's going to come, and it'll probably be gamified. So it'll help people just look at one thing at a time and then progressively help them with each of those items of weakness.
And I love that, because what you're basically describing is that we're going to put people in a position to access what they want when they want it, because at that time they actually needed it. It is situational financial planning that is on demand. And I'm a believer of that as well, as that's where we're going. And they want to do it through their phone, or 20 years from now through whatever, when our kids will actually have kids and their kids will laugh and say, what do you mean you actually carried your phone in your hand? It'll be probably right up there with stick shifts and having to drive a car by yourself. So things are going to change, but what won't change is the ability to access on demand what you need whenever that situation in life has to develop. So let's go to a last question. We just did the outside business consultant, and I agree. It's going to go through the app. It's going to be situational. We have to do the same things that other industries are doing, because that's what the end user, I was about to say requires. That's not even the word. They demand it. That's how they want to engage us. Therefore, we must deliver. But let's now put on the hat of inside consultant. You've been in the industry a long time. You've got all the different tracks of business. You've seen it. Take yourself back 10 years or more than 10 years and imagine talking to a young Brad as you're just starting to build out this business, which many people listening to the podcast, that's exactly where they're at right now. What kind of advice would you give yourself?
I think you need to be willing to embrace change. I can tell you every time that the world or the industry has changed, our firm has grown from it, because we didn't look at it as a threat. We looked at it as an opportunity. And I think that the typical advisor is going to have to do that. For example, the typical wealth management advisor probably isn't going to like that app, because he's going to say, that's replacing me. I can tell you, I don't believe that, because there is going to be a button on that app where if that person wants access to a person, it's going to click out and it's going to go to an intelligence CFP. And he's going to start forming a relationship, because yes, there are roughly 10 to 15% of Americans who are do-it-yourselfers, but you've got 80 to 85% that want access to a live human being. And that is not going to go away. And that's what we're going to provide at intellicents, either through digital means or actually coming on site. That's why we're now putting branch offices in places where we have a high population of 401k participants, under the belief that we're going to put smart people and couple it with great technology. There'll be people who just use the tech, but there's going to be multiples of those people that want access to a person.
And that's great. So I think what you're saying is that you want advisors to know that the future isn't robo, it's robo-assisted. It's bionic. That's right. We went over that before. It is. So you're going to have the technology involved in there, and it's going to be a lot better. And I'll just reiterate one thing you said at the end there, which is how you adapt to change is what matters. And the phrases, or the term, is called cognitive dissonance. And that simply means events in life are neutral, and we decide, was it good or was it bad? We ascribe something to that event. And there are traumatic events in life and disruptive that have positive benefits down the road. It doesn't mean it wasn't a traumatic event. It just means that you grew from it. And there are wonderful events that happen that there may be some negative implications down the road as well. But the key is, in order to shape that change, and the reason I get passionate about that is I have a book coming out in about 60 days, and the title is called Shaping Change. And I was just writing some of this stuff this morning. It's for us to look at the change and realize something happened. yes, life changed, but I have to lean into it and I have to shape it and I have to grow from it. And our industry has this technology push right now. Our end user says, I want to use the app. I want to engage that way for my 401k, for benefits, for buying a mortgage, for making investments, for whatever it is. They want to go through the phone with an app, but they still need to talk to a person in many situations. And that's where you guys are going. And it sounds like that's who you think in the future is actually going to own this business. Is that right?
Well, yeah, it's how do you monetize and actually make money off of serving the 99%? And it's got to be a combination of people and technology. If we didn't have the technology and the people, we effectively wouldn't be able to do it. And so, that is, you've got to look at it also, and you've got to say, I've got to make financial planning and employee benefit. We now have a half dozen clients who are paying for, in some way, shape, or form, either all or a part of their employees' ability to get a comprehensive financial plan from intellicents. So, nobody ever thought about that before. So it's like a mission of ours today to make financial planning and employee benefit. And I've seen employers willing to pay for that.
I love it. And it is music to my ears. Financial planning as an employee benefit, I believe, is where it was going and where it needed to go, because that's where people, as you said, handle the bulk of their financial needs. It happens through the workplace. And now we have the technology to do that. We just have to learn and grow and figure out how to deliver to people what they need, the 99%, and make sure we can run a profitable business so we can keep adding more and more and helping out those people. Fantastic. Brad, thank you so much for being on the show. I love listening to you. I love asking you questions. You are a deep thinker with a lot of experience, and you're a humble guy who's had to change and shift along the way, and you're still learning. And the passion, man, you just can't hide that. So thanks for being on the show, and by all means, continue to rock on.
Thank you, Russ. It was fun. Really was. I enjoyed it.
All right. And for everybody out there listening, remember, answers matter most when you ask the right questions.
Thank you for listening to Outcomes. Subscribe now to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.